Hey guys, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're going to spend a little time working on iNav, the iNav telemetry script with EdgeTX. And the reason we're doing this is I don't really use this tech very much myself. I mean, I have it, I've toyed with it, and it's mildly interesting. You know, it's kind of cool stuff, but there are a lot of people who are very interested in this technology. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and go through the process of setting it up on EdgeTX. So there are a couple things that we have to do first. And I'm not sure why, but I'm getting some weird. There it is. The graphics were just kind of not displaying correctly. But anyway, so the first thing we're going to do is here are the steps, right? Step number one, we're going to upgrade EdgeTX to the latest. Now, the reason I'm going to do that is because, in honesty, I can't tell you in prior versions. Like, I can't go back to every version, to 2.70, 2.60, 2.50, 2.40. I can't go back to those and tell you, yeah, this definitely works. What I can do is show you what does work. So for that reason, on my production radio, I'm running 2.71. So we're going to do that first. And that way we get everybody up to speed on the firmware. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll make sure we've got some telemetry sensors that we can work with. Because without telemetry sensors, nothing else matters. It's not going to, you know, that's one of the things that people say, hey, I installed the widget, but it's not showing me anything. So we have to make sure we have sensors working. I'll show you how to do that. And then once we've got EdgeTX upgraded and our sensors working, that is kind of the foundation, right? Once we have that working, we have the foundation to make sure everything else works, and it should. So then we'll download and install the iNav Telemetry LUA. We'll set up a main screen for an iNav widget, so I'll show you how to add the widget. And then we'll close out by me showing you how to go into the widget itself and configuring it and you know, going through some of the options. I won't go through every single thing, but we'll go through some of it so you can get an idea of what's involved. So with that said, that's the plan. We're going to come back to the blackboard just to make sure we stay on track, but we're going to start out first by updating Edge to the latest. Now, I'm going to show you on my SD card on this radio, right here in my firmware directory. Here's what I've got. So I've got firmware.bin, I've got a multi-protocol upgrade, I've got a TX16S no LUA, that's an OpenTX firmware for when I do OpenTX testing. And then I've got 2.5 and 2.6. Okay, so I have 2.7 on the radio, but we're going to show you how to do it, and we'll go from there. So we're just going to make an assumption that you have some version of EdgeTX, not 2.7.1, and we're going to get you up to speed on 2.7.1. So we'll connect the radio to the PC using the USB-C cable that they gave you, and when you do that, you should be prompted. Let me switch over to the workspace because I really kind of want you to see what happens on the screen, and I'll hide this browser for the moment. We'll come back to that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and select USB storage. So see that USB storage SD card, and when I click that, what should happen is my computer that's awesome. I got an error message saying it's not recognized. Let me try it again. Computers, right? Same deal. I'm just going to click it and click USB storage, and I should get a pop-up window on my computer. There it goes. It looks like it's going to work correctly this time. There it is. There's a little pop-up window. See? Live streams. I go through this stuff too. You guys aren't unique when you have issues. We all have little issues like this. So that's the first thing we'll do is we'll get access to the SD card, and you can see that right here. I've got access to my SD card, and what I'm going to do is go grab a copy of Edge, the latest copy, and I've got the links for this in the description, so you can go there and download them from the description. So I put the links in the description for you. So all I'm going to do is come down here on the EdgeTX GitHub, and we'll open this window up just a little bit, and you see down here at the bottom we've got EdgeTX firmware 2.7.1.zip. So I'll click on that. That'll download it to the computer. It's down here. Let me bring this up so you guys can see it right there. It's downloaded to my computer now. I'm just going to click on that and open it, and we're done with the browser for the moment, so I'll put that away, and I'm going to take the firmware that I need. So I'm looking through the list, and I need TX16S right there. TX16S A550, it says A55AFF0.bin. So that's 2.7. See up here in the title, it says 2.7.1. So I'm going to just drag this over to my firmware folder on my SD card, and I'm going to let it go. And as soon as that's done copying, the next thing I'm going to do is rename that firmware so I know what it is. So I like to do, I like to put the version numbers in my firmware on my radio so that way I know what I've got. So I'm going to call mine version 2.7.1. And I'll get rid of all this other stuff because I really don't care about that. Developers might care about that, but I don't. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, so now that we've got it on the firmware, on a firmware folder on our radio, the next thing we'll do is go back to the radio. So I'm going to bring the big camera up. We're done with the desktop for the moment. So I'm going to bring the big camera up, and I'm going to turn the radio off. And then I'm going to hold T4 and T1 in and turn the radio on. And that brings up our what we call a bootloader. So in the bootloader, that's where we have access to the SD card, and we can flash the firmware within the bootloader. This is my preferred method. There are other ways to do it, but I like this method the best because it's completely reliable. So I'll select write firmware by using the jog dial. See, I use the jog dial right here, and I'll select write firmware with that blue box highlighting write firmware. I'll press the jog dial down, and I'm going to find that firmware that I just showed you, right? The 2.7.1 right there. So I'm going to click on that, and then that selects it, and then we'll long press it to flash it. All right. So there we go. That's how we flash. You'll get from whatever version of Edge you're on to 2.7.1. Now I'm going to give you a warning. If you're on a version prior to I believe it's 2.6 when they instituted YAML, you might have to go through some conversion stuff from binary format to YAML. I think it was 2.6. I don't remember. Maybe it was 2.5. But anyway, if you don't have YAML today, just be aware when you go to 2.7.1, you're going to have YAML. And so it might have to do a conversion. My radio already has YAML, so it's not going to be a problem. You can see on the screen, I've got my SD firmware says writing complete, and all I have to do now is hit the return button here on the left, and then I'm going to hit exit, and that will bring me back into the radio. And when this reboots, I'll show you that we have version 2.7.1. So throttle is idle. I'll just bring my throttle down. Now I'm going to hit the system button. I'm going to add a little bit of brightness so you guys can see, and then I'm going to go over here to the information screen, and from there you can see I've got Edge 2.7.1. Okay, that's right here in the version number 2.7.1. Okay, so that's the first step. All right, that completes step number 1. That's upgrading Edge to the latest. That's upgrading Edge to the latest. All right, the next thing we have to do, and I'm going to switch radios now because this radio that I'm using for the demo, it doesn't have a Crossfire in it. So I'm going to show you my actual production radio. So I'm going to go to this radio now, and I'm going to show you what I mean by sensors, okay? And I'm going to also show you how to get them in case you don't know. So we're going to cover all of it. We're going to make sure you guys have everything you need to know. So this is my production radio, and you can see I've got my Chimera 6. If you watch my channel, I've done lots of videos with the Chimera 6, so I fly this one a lot. So what we'll do is click on model, and then I'm going to click on the page left key right here, this one. And what I'm looking for is I'm going to go over to the telemetry screen, and I want to show you what I mean by telemetry. When you run that iNav LUA, you have to have this part done. You have to have all of these telemetry sensors in here, and what you're really looking for are the ones specific to iNav or Betaflight. So when you have telemetry come in, you'll have ground speed, heading, altitude, what does that say? Satellites, pitch, roll, yaw. These are all options that show up when you discover sensors. So when you have your configuration working, you hit discover new, these all show up. Now let me show you what'll happen. I'm going to connect a quad, and we're going to populate that stuff, right? I want you to see it, because if you don't have this working, the Lua script is immaterial. Like, the Lua script only reports what it sees here. So you have to have this working first, okay? So I'm going to show you what it looks like when it works correctly. And what will happen is, once we have a connection to this radio, you see how all those data points got populated? You see how I've got current right there, and RX bat, and capacity, and all pitch and roll. Like if I rotate the quad, you'll see the pitch and roll starting to change. You see that? If that doesn't happen, then forget about the Lua script. Don't even bother. You got to do this part first, okay? Now, let me show you how to do it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this quad to Betaflight, and I'm going to bring Betaflight up for you, and I'm going to show you guys what Betaflight looks like, so you can do it. And iNav's the same way. It's no different than on iNav. So this is a lot easier to work with on the desk. So I'm going to use the quad, but iNav is the same exact thing. All you have to do is bring up Betaflight, and I'm bringing that up on the desktop right now, and we'll switch over to the workspace so you guys can see. All right, now I've got Betaflight connected. I'm going to hide the camera because you don't really need to see the quad and the radio at this point. So I've got Betaflight connected. And what I'm going to do is hit connect and show you the configuration. Where you need to be in here under your configuration, first off, is you have to have telemetry right here turned on. You see that option for telemetry right there? That has to be on. And then the next thing you need is you need a radio that's got the ability to do telemetry. And that's one of the reasons I love Crossfire, is because it's just baked right into Betaflight and iNav. So if you select serial receiver provider and you select Crossfire, and then under your configuration, you turn on telemetry, that's all you've got to do. That's it. It's that simple. And when you've done that, and you have your RX and TX leads correctly connected to your pads on your Betaflight or iNav computer, then when you've done that, you can go back to your device and you can go under Discover New Sensors right here. And when you hit that, all of this stuff just automatically just populates. It just populates and it's there. Okay, so it's really important for you guys to understand this part, because if you don't get the sensors, you got to get Betaflight set up, right? You got to make sure your receiver is working and talking to your quad correctly. And then you add those two configurations options that I showed you in Betaflight. You have to make sure you've got telemetry output turned on, and you got to make sure your receiver is set to Crossfire. And when you've done that, your radio, I guarantee you, it's worked for me flawlessly over countless numbers of radio. You just do a Discover New, and when you do that, you'll get all the sensors you need for iNav. Okay? Okay, so that's it. Let's go back to the Blackboard, and I want to check off number 2. So we need to ensure telemetry sensors are working. That's why I wanted to walk through that step with you guys so you could see what I'm talking about. That has... Oh, I just fired my mouse across the room, so I might have to go get that. You guys are going to have to give me just a moment. I just shot my mouse across the room. All right, a lot of wires on the desk. Okay, so that's point number 2, ensure telemetry sensors are working. Now, before I go any further, I do want to check comments because I want to make sure I'm not leaving anybody behind. So give me just a moment to check comments and we'll see what's going on. It says, yo, okay, so Audio Gex says a lot of people can't get this to work because of different builds and forks. Yeah, that's part of the issue, right? There's a lot of experimentation out there and you got to be on the right path, right? Sergio says, yo, brother, how you doing, Sergio? Happy Saturday, says Chris. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Sco FPV says, hello, Headfog, what's up? Jim Worley says, good morning, John. Good morning, Jim. Back at you. It's cool to have, but I never really used it practically. It does come with its own audio prompts like battery and altitude. Need to figure out how to select them on or off. Yeah, okay. And John Opperman, awesome info. Good. Okay, so no questions so far. It means you guys are tracking, which is awesome. I like it when it goes like that. Okay, so now we've done number 2, right? We upgraded to Edge and we ensured our telemetry sensors are working. So hopefully everyone's got that one down. Now the next thing we're going to do is download and install the iNav Telemetry LUA. So let me get a browser open for that. And I'm going to show you guys, we're going to bring Precious back up. If you guys don't keep track of my radio names, Precious is my red one. And let's see, we'll bring the workspace back up here. And I'm going to add the camera back because I just want to see you guys. I want to make the connection. But before I do, I also want to show you that there, well, in fact, let's do this. Let's go to the big camera. I want to show you that on this radio, if I look in the system, press the system button and navigate over to the file manager right there, I want to show you that when it comes to scripts, I don't have, and there is no iNav on here. Okay, there's nothing in here. There's no iNav folder. And if I set up a, I don't even have a widget, but if I were to set up a widget, there is no iNav widget. So I'll just show you guys by clicking the telemetry page. I'll do setup widgets. I'll click on my radio. I'll do select widget. And I'll show you that there is no iNav in here. So when I scroll down to the bottom, there's nothing in there. Okay. So I don't have iNav on this radio. It does not exist. It does not exist. All right. So that's it. We'll go over to the workspace again. And what I'm going to do is show you the link for iNav. And again, in the description, so you don't have to memorize it and you don't have to copy it down. It's in the description of the video already. And here it is. It's on GitHub as well. Okay. So on GitHub, you go to the link that I gave you in the description. Let me go ahead and hide this camera because I don't need the radio right now. And over here on the right-hand side, there's a link that says 2.1.0 device updates and improvement, and it says the latest. You want to click on that. And that was updated about 25 days ago. Okay. Now we'll go down to the bottom and you'll see he tells you right here there are 2 zip files provided. Lua Telemetry 2.1.0 is the compiled Lua, should work on all radios, and is the recommended download. Okay, he tells you right here what to get. So all you have to do is go down to the assets section down here at the bottom, and it says Lua Telemetry 2.1.0.zip. All right, there's also a Lua.zip. That's the source Lua. It compiles on the device and may be required in the simulator. Okay, so what I recommend and what worked for me is grab the one that he recommends. So we'll grab the Lua Telemetry version 2.1.0.zip, and we're just going to download that. Okay, now we've got that on our computer. We can click on that, and you can see when I open that, when we're done with the browser, we open that one, there are 2 folders. Don't touch anything just yet. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have you connect your radio. So I'm going to bring the camera screen back up, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm just going to connect the radio and connect the radio. I get prompted for USB or joystick. I'm going to select USB, and I should get my windows on the computer here momentarily. There they are. And all I'm going to do is close this one that says firmware bin and text. Don't ever get in there. Just get out of there. You don't need anything in there at all. So now here's my SD card right here on the right. All right. And let me try and resize these windows. Oh, actually I can turn the camera off. There we go. Don't need the radio for this part. So I'm going to size these windows so you guys can see what's going on. There we go. All right. Now here is the zip file on the left. Here's my SD card on the right. All you have to do is just take your mouse and put it in some open space right here, highlight both of these folders just like that, and drag them. Just drag them right over here to the root of your SD card. Now somebody asked me the other day, what's root? It's the bottom directory. It's the lowest place you can go on your SD card. So the root directory has all the main folders in it. So I'm just going to let it rip. That's all you have to do. Just let it go and let it copy. It just takes a few seconds, and the cool thing about the way they do these archives these days is they're intended to work this way. So they're intended to be dropped off in the root directory, and they just take care of putting things where they need to be on your SD card. You don't have to worry about any of it. Just drop it off in the root directory, and that's it. Okay, now I'm going to show you real quick. So in the telemetry folder under scripts, you see I now have iNav and iNav Lua. Okay, and then there's also a widget. In order for widgets to work, they have to add an iNav folder with main.lua. That's how the widget gets to work. So anyway, those files are put in the correct places. They're now on my SD card on my radio, and I'm going to bring the camera back up. In fact, we'll just bring the big camera back up, and I'm going to disconnect the radio from the computer, and we'll get access to the screen here in just a second. All right, so let's go back to the Blackboard. And let's see. So we've downloaded and installed the iNav Lua telemetry. So that's number 3. Now, number 4, we need to set up the main screen for iNav widget. Okay, let's go back to the big screen or the big camera. We'll do that. All we have to do now is set up a main screen. And the way we do that is from your model screen, wherever you are in the beginning, when you turn the radio on, you simply press and hold this telemetry button down here on the bottom left. And you see options along the top. You see how I've only got one main screen set up right now. So we'll have an option to add a main screen. So we're going to do that by clicking that little plus button, and then we'll hit add main screen. And it just takes a second. And once that's done, you see now I have 2 main screens. If I were to back out of this, now I can use my page right, and I can click back and forth between the 2 screens. You can also swipe. Isn't that cool? Bet you didn't know that, did you? You can swipe back and forth between your screens. That's cool. That's one of the nice little tricks on Edge. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on my telemetry button again. And on page 2, we now have to set this screen up to work with the iNav widget. So I'm going to put this down on the desk, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you guys can have a nice clear look. And I wanted to get a pointer out too, so I could show you guys really clearly what's going to happen. The first thing we're going to do is change the layout. That's the first thing we need to do. And we're going to change the layout by clicking that red icon, that right there. And we're going to scroll up, and what you need is the one that says full screen. You see that says full screen? Click on that. So now we've got a full screen. That's what we need for iNav. And the next thing we need to do is turn off all this other stuff. So see where we have top bar, that has to be turned off. You see where we have flight mode, that has to be turned off. Sliders, that has to be turned off. And trims, that has to be turned off. So everything is turned off. All we've got is one big screen, one widget right there. That's it. Okay, the last thing to do is click select widgets. And now it kind of looks like what just happened, but if you look very closely, you can see a red dashed line all the way around. This is one big screen widget right here, and the radio is saying, tell me what widget you want to put in here. So we just click the screen, and we click select widget, and we'll scroll down to the bottom. Remember I showed you earlier that wasn't there. iNav wasn't there, right? So iNav is now there. That's how it's installed, right? It goes into your widgets selector. So now we'll click on iNav, and when I do that, I get an option for restore text warning. I'm just not going to fool with any of that. I'm just going to hit somewhere on the screen, and there's my iNav widget. So we now have an iNav widget installed and operational. Now notice that there's still a red dot around there. That's because we're still in the widget settings. We need to get out of there. So we're going to get out of there by pressing return right here, and then we press return again. Now that might be a little confusing to you, but all that means is now we're back on the page that we just set up. So that's a screen, and I can swipe this way and go to my main screen. Okay, so there's page 1, there's page 2. That's my widget. Now if I keep going, I go right back to page. Oh, I thought I went back to page 1. I thought it circled. Anyway, so there's page 1, there's page 2. Okay, and you can also use your buttons here on the left-hand side. You can do page left, and you can do page right. Either way, whatever works for you, that's all you got to do. Okay, so if we go back to the Blackboard, now what we've done is we've downloaded and installed the iNav Telemetry LUA, and we've set up the main screen for the iNav widget. That's what we just got through covering, right? We just set up the main screen, so we added the iNav widget. All right, and now the last thing is to show the configuration screen for iNav. Now, what I want to do is we're going to go into the big camera, and it's real simple. I'm going to just zoom out just a touch because you have to see the sticks for this one. And the idea for configuration is that you leave this stick. Now, I'm in mode 2, so I want to be clear about that. I'm not sure. I have never tried it on mode 1, so I don't know if it changes for mode 1 or not. You might have to invert this if you're a mode 1 flyer. But for mode 2 flyers, you simply take the left-hand stick, that's your throttle stick, so this one's not sprung, right? So I take the left-hand stick and I put it up in this corner. And when I do that, you see a message on the screen that says return the throttle stick to bottom center. So I pull that down, and now I can go through the different configuration options on the screen. I use the one on the stick on the right. You see the elevator stick. I just kind of bounce that down, and I can go into these different configuration options and say, well, here's an altitude alert. The altitude alert is on, and let's say I want to leave that on. I might go down here under max altitude and say, if I want to change that from 120, I'm going to go over here to the right, and you notice how that's now blinking. And then when I push up, that lets me change the altitude. Okay. And when I'm done with my change, say I want it to be 140. When I'm done with that, I just hit left. Whoops, I'm sorry, you don't hit left. I think you hit right again. I'm sorry. So we'll do that. So it's blinking. Yeah, you hit right again, and it turns it back off. You leave the edit mode. So that's it. These are all the settings. You can go in there and tweak around and play around with those all you want and set your iNav settings however you want them to be, your iNav LUA settings however you want them to be. Okay, so that's how you get into the settings screens. Then to get out of it, you simply press left on the aileron stick, and that brings you back out to the main widget screen. Okay. All right, so that's the show the configuration screen for iNav, which means we've completed everything now. And this video is 20 minutes in. So 20 minutes, that's all it took to install Edge, to install the Lua script, to do a basic configuration and make sure everything works. That's all it took. It's not hard to do, and I explained the whole time, like I was showing you guys everything and talking about it and explaining it. So if you want to do your own, you can do it in much less time than that. So with that done, the next thing I want to do is bring up the big camera and show you again. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see everything that's going on the desktop. But I want to show you what the iNav LUA looks like. So on the working radio, where I actually have iNav set up, here it is. There's the iNav, and I'm going to show you that it works just by rolling. Check out my artificial horizon indicator. You see how that's... You see how I'm getting the artificial horizon? There's up, there's down. You see how that's working? That's all coming in from me just moving the quad back and forth. So that shows you when you've got your telemetry working, you do all the things that I just showed you, it will work. It does work, and it's not a problem. And I know we focus a little bit on Betaflight today, but iNav is the same thing. It all works pretty much the same. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna go back to the big camera. And oh, we're on the big camera. I'm gonna go back to, yeah, I guess the big camera's fine. And I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to bring up the chat window. I'm going to check to see if there are any comments or questions. And I guess I'm not going to bring up the chat window because I didn't populate it. That's okay. You guys don't. You guys see the chat in the video, so I'll just cover this from my point of view. So let's see. Johan Opperman says, "Awesome info, John. Wish you can do the pilot jam on Saturday at this time, then I can watch." Hey, FYI, if you guys are interested in the pilot jam, just FYI, my son is playing football this fall, and football, it happens on Friday night. So the pilot jam will be moving. I haven't figured out what day yet, but it will be moving. So John D's FPV, this was the reason I haven't switched to Edge. Well, I don't know. Okay, I don't know why. Because of iNav, maybe? Well, it does work, so there's that. So it looks like you can switch now. Spartan329 says, "This is what I've been waiting for to cross over. Thanks, you're welcome. Glad to help." Precious needs gold rings. Yeah, I like Precious the way she is, man. Precious is just set. Some people bust my chops about the cover. I haven't removed the screen protector yet, and I do that. It's kind of a goof. The reason I do that is because it reminds me back when I was a kid how many of the moms in the family left all their plastic coverings on the couches, which I thought was humorous. So I just left it on there. It kind of harkens back to my childhood a little bit. That's why I leave it on there. Four Ice is hi all. Very good. North 49, John D's, "I tried to get this to work on open and failed. I switched to Edge, suddenly it fired up fine." Okay, good. I'll do the install when I switch. This is what I need to play with. Thank you, John, says Chris. You're welcome. All right. Well, hey, I don't see any questions. I think that means we covered the topics pretty well. And I think you now have everything you need to know in order to make a successful migration and to get that iNav LUA script working well on EdgeTX. So that's all you got to do. It's very simple, not a problem. And, this video will be here for reference. So if you guys ever get stuck, feel free to come back. I would also encourage you to check out our Discord. Get on our Discord. We have a lot of really knowledgeable people on Discord, and they can help you out too if you get stuck. So it doesn't just have to be me, although I'm always happy to try and help, but we do have a lot of people on our Discord who know what's going on. With that said, I want to make sure I give a big shout out to my patrons and say thanks to you guys for supporting the channel. And I want to extend the invite. If you like the work that I do here, you feel like you get some help and you want to help the channel back, you can join me on patreon.com/RCVideoReviews. And I have a tier for $3 a month. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by going to patreon.com/RCVideoReviews. All right, guys, that covers what I had for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you do, make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment at the end. That's all I've got for today. Hey, get out there and fly something. Take it easy.